Yeah, well, the thing to remember about videos, and also the same thing about my videos too, because it applies to every piece of content out there, especially instructional content, is that the instructional content you're looking at for research purposes, they're very helpful. They're great. Some of them are incredibly detailed, but they always lack, and that's my videos included, okay? They always lack the personal, individual touch that your dog needs. So, you might be looking up, how do I stop my dog from jumping? And you might have probably a page full of results, right? You might have like 5 different creators, for example, giving you 5 different instructional videos on how to stop the jumping. And you're going to notice there are going to be some similarities, there are going to be some, some differences, some vastly different approaches. But the thing to remember about every single one of these as you're looking and researching this information is that you have to be aware that your dog is a unique individual, different than the dog that is being used in the videos that are being presented when you do these searches. So that's the thing to kind of keep in mind is, you want to look at it with a grain of salt always. Go, okay, I'm going to look at this video resonates with me, what the guy's saying makes sense to me, and if it makes sense to you on a fundamental way, then then do a little bit more research, keep watching the video, try out the tips that are being given, because there is a difference in approaches. There is going to be the trainer, the creator, the content creator is going to give you more of a purely positive approach. Purely positive approach meaning the trainer, the creator will not engage in any sort of correction, will not engage in any sort of even saying no, and it's all just this is what's called purely positive, right? And there are some trainers, content creators are going to be a little bit more balanced. They're going to be like, okay, look, we do want to emphasize the importance of rewards and all of that, but we also have to emphasize the concept of, no, you can't do that. Well, these are different approaches, and they might resonate differently to the person that is actually looking. It varies. Like, you could look at anything completely unrelated that is not dog training. You could look at two videos that maybe explain the planet, right? And you might go, okay, this person is describing the planet in a more of a matter, physical way. This person is describing the same thing, and there's a little bit more of a spiritual tone to it, right? So you're going to resonate differently to, you're going to resonate to one of those descriptions. It's very similar. I'm not trying to go, into a loop when I'm describing this, but you're going to notice that that different approaches do connect with people differently.
Well, like, I was looking at several different solutions people put out for this, and one of them, ignore the behavior.
Yeah.
And I don't think ignore the behavior, but it's basically just
very common.
Yeah, and so I didn't see how that applied, and that's just can be the naiveness of me, but I don't see how that applied when if you have a dog jumping up on you.
Yeah.
And ignoring it, it's okay. Well, I don't see how that's helping the situation.
Yeah, and so that is a really good observation right there. And here's what happens. You're not a dog trainer, but you were able to look at that and be very subjective about it and realize, as a human being, as an adult, as a person who has the ability to use critical thinking, you can look at that and go, I don't see how that applies to me. And here's the reason. It might not apply at all. Here's what I'll tell you, right? ignore the dog. Just to give you an example, if the dog jumps on me, ignoring the dog will work great if I have a very young dog with not a whole lot of life experience. If I have a very young dog that doesn't have a whole lot of life experience, ignoring the dog is a great advice. But if the trainer or the content creator did not emphasize that, then it becomes a blanket statement. And then a person like, you or somebody else who maybe doesn't have a young dog, maybe they have a 5-year-old dog that's at 4 years or maybe even 5 years getting rewarded for jumping on people. That's 5 years that a dog's being rewarded for jumping on people. You're not going to ignore your way out of it in a week.
And see, that's the
or a couple of
environment
weeks.
I think that a lot of people are when they go to a dog rescue, or they go to the dog pound and they get a dog there. They're most likely getting, for the most part, an adult dog.
Yes, most of the time, yeah.
Yes, there's puppies there and young dogs, but for the most part, you're getting a dog getting a second or third chance on life.
Yes.
And and hence that, you might want to get the dog some training because you have no idea.
Yeah.
What past experiences, rewards, consequences.
No clue. Yeah.
So, kind of, you just started going into this a little bit, but would the training be different based off the size of the dog or the breed of the dog?
So the breed sometimes has an influence on how we're going to approach training. Now, there are so many breeds out there, so many different kinds of breeds, right? And then also you have mixes. So rather than looking at the specific breeds, we can look at the type of dogs that we have. That's a little bit easier to narrow down. If I have a very excitable, intense dog, that's like a bunch of breeds right there. That could be a terrier, that could be a bully breed, that could be a herding breed, and even within the herding breeds, there's so many different herding breeds. So just by saying, okay, what kind of dog do I have? Do I have a very excitable, intense dog? That's an entire group of breeds right there. Or do I have a dog that is a little bit more calm? There's a little bit more methodical, a little bit more thoughtful. That's also a bunch of different breeds. That could be a Mastiff. That could be a Scent Hound, right? So that already tells me we don't have to focus on the breed, focus on the type of dog that we have. Do I have a dog that's a little bit more stoic? Dog that's a little bit more stoic, dog that maybe is a little bit more independent. They're not really looking for your validation. They're not really looking for your, for your approval necessarily. Sometimes they don't even care much about the rewards that you have. So based on these different types of dogs, I can go, okay, my approach for the very excitable dog might have to be different than the approach that it would be for the more stoic dog. The more stoic dog that is a little bit more independent, jumps on you a couple of times, you ignore that dog might be okay. Someone might be like, okay, no big deal. It doesn't mean that much to me anyway. Do you see what I mean? Whereas I have a more intense, excitable dog, the ignoring might be different. Might not be as applicable to them. So type of dog is more important than breed, and the age of the dog is also a factor. Just like we talked a moment ago, the younger the dog is, the less life experience they have. So the less life experience they have, the less reward history they have with the undesirable behaviors. Whereas a dog that is a year and a half, that's still a young dog, but it's now it's a year and a half. 2 years old, 3 years old, 5 years old. You're possibly dealing with a dog that has so much experience doing a particular behavior that you're not very fond of, where the approach will have to be different because you have this dog that has been doing it for 5 years, versus the dog that's only been doing it for a couple of months.
Okay. Well, so in the size, okay, you got a Chihuahua. I'm not too worried about that.
Yeah, exactly.
You get maybe more of a Benji size dog. get up on you a little more, but it's still, some people may just take that as being cute
Yeah,
until
yeah.
it snags their dress or something.
No, that's a good point too. So the thing that a lot of people don't realize is small dogs, when they're young, they're not small forever. So it's not uncommon, because I've talked to people like this, where they'll go, yeah, I used to let him jump on me because it was adorable, he was young, but then when that dog is like 8, 9 months of age, now it's like 60, 70 pounds.
Big difference.
It's the same dog, and you were okay with that behavior when it was 8 weeks, 10 weeks, but now that same dog with that same behavior, 50, 60 pounds later, it's an entirely different situation now. Now you have a problem. So it's important to gauge or predict, what the size of this dog is going to be. Just like you said, a Chihuahua, not going to be that much of a problem. You don't really care about that a whole lot. The Chihuahua's going to jump on your knees. Not going to make a whole lot of trouble, versus a German Shepherd or an American Bulldog or a Mastiff.
Yeah, so like when I had my parents living with me, my mom would love to have the dogs jump up on the couch and love on her and give her attention.
Yeah.
And she'd love on them back and everything. Well, when she would be walking with her walker, she got really nervous, and when the dogs would see her, the dogs would come up to her.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, okay, there's a balance there. Because bump the walker, bump her, and it's an easy fall. And there was no intention
Of
to
course.
do that.
Yeah.
Just, you've got to watch what people's ability to stand, walk.
Yeah.
Because like you said, they're cute and they're young
Yeah.
at the very beginning, and then they put on 60 pounds.
Oh yeah.
And
Absolutely.
it just puts a little bit of bump, can make people lose their balance.
Especially on an older person, that could be. I mean, just one fall could be devastating.
Mm-hmm. Well, I found some other things that on these internet searches I did. One was teach an alternate command. And
Yes.
of course, then there was the standard use commands like off or down.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the off or down is pretty self-explanatory, except you've got to teach them the meaning of whichever word you choose to give them off or down. But I mean, how do you get them to? I guess you have to reward them when they're going down, or
Yeah, there's a couple of ways to do that. And the thing that I'll add to that is I don't particularly like the word down, because down is a behavior in itself. Down means put your belly on the ground.
I'm making note, down equal bad.
Yeah, because when you say down, because a lot of people do it, right? The dog jumps, you go down, down. Well, what happens is now you have to use down.
Commands, yeah.
You know what I mean? That's one of the commands that we want to use. So you don't want to just say down for get off of me, and then also down for put your belly on the ground. Just you want to make it easier on you. So the less commands, the better, in my opinion.
Okay.
So I'm more partial to off if I was given those choices, but I personally prefer no. The reason I prefer no, it's much more universal, and I could use it for a number of things. No, to me, basically means stop what you're doing.
Yeah.
It's not a command. It just means stop what you're doing. Don't do that. The dog starts, sniffing towards in the direction of the trash. No means stop what you're doing. You know what I mean?
So one command can serve many purposes, less for the dog to learn.
Less for you to remember. No just means stop what you're doing. That's all you do. That's all it means. Stop what you're doing. And just less vocabulary. Less. Less to remember. So this way, it's easier on you, easier on the dog. The dog understands it. Using it more frequently than, maybe the off time you might use off here and there. No, it's more like, don't do that. Now, how do you teach that? I know you asked, how do you teach that? Well, depending on the dog. You know, if I have a young dog with not a whole lot of experience, it might be as simple as when he stops doing the behavior, like if I'm ignoring it, right? The moment he stops doing the behavior, I can say a no or off to let him know what you just stopped doing has a name. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Jumping, jumping, jumping. The moment he stops jumping, so I'm ignoring. The moment he stops jumping, no. To let him know what you just stopped doing has a name. It means, you know, we're not doing that. Okay? If I have a dog that has more experience, dog is like 3 years old, and it's gotten a dopamine rush out of jumping on people, he doesn't care that you're ignoring him. He's still getting that dopamine rush. He's jumping on you. On top of that, he starts pushing you around. Your reaction is feeding its, you know, the behavior. You could be crossing your arms, turning away. The dog is like, you don't need to participate. I'm doing all the work for both of us, and I'm still getting excited about it. So the approach is going to be different. Then to teach them the no, now I'm going to have to very likely use some pressure to let them know, hey, we don't do that. You know what I mean? Now the pressure depends on the dog. To some dogs, I know you've probably seen this, right? The jumping, people will go, put your knee up. That might be enough for some dogs. The dog might be like, I got the message, jumping up. That means you put your knee up. Not a good thing. That might be enough for a dog. For some dogs, it will not deter them. And for some dogs, it'll piss them off. So it varies on the type of dog that you have.
So, okay, so I guess it also, the environment of trying to do this in. So, for example, you bring a dog home for the first time, or
Yeah.
in my case, I got it into an area Friday evening into a pen and was trying to
Yeah.
get it situated. New environment, overly excited, wants attention.
Mhm.
It's been deprived attention for
Sure.
a while. Probably not the best time to sit there and start trying to teach the ABCs to something because there's just so much going.
So much going on, but also this dog is still getting a read of you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he's still trying to figure you out. Still trying to figure out what's going on. He might be excited to see you. He might be like, hey, there's a human.
Mm-hmm.
You're being nice. I'm just excited right now. So I would say right away to go, let's stop that today. Probably not the most, you could do it.
Probably not the best use of your time.
Yeah, it's not. But also, you know, what you're doing is you're letting the dog know. You're starting off on the keep your distance. You know what I mean? That's how you're starting off. Keep your distance. Whereas the best option to do would be like, avoid the situation, ignore a little bit. Then as you get to know the dog a little bit more, as days go by and the dog realizes, okay, everything's great, then you can start putting those boundaries and going, hey, I'm going to teach you what no means. I'm going to teach you that, you know, this is not what we do.
Do you teach alternate commands?
Yeah, absolutely. So the actual name is called, it's a differential reinforcement of an incompatible behavior, which means,
I saw that when
Yeah.
I was looking up today.
yeah, it's exactly what it is. What it is it means you cannot do two things at the same time. It's impossible for you to do two things at the same time.
Okay.
So if the dog jumps on you, if you tell it to sit, and the dog knows what sit means, it means it's impossible for that dog to sit and jump on you at the same time. So what we do is we emphasize, put your butt on the ground, and that's how you get affection. So an incompatible behavior is great because it manages their behavior in a given situation where the alternative might be the unwanted behavior. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
But that requires involvement, direct involvement from the owner.
Okay, so I like your answer on teaching an alternate command better than everything else I read. It was like, go get it to go sit over here, do something. No, you can't do two things at once.
Exactly.
Teach it to sit.
Yeah.
Can't jump and sit at the same time.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, that makes a lot more.
Yeah.
You need to make more videos. Okay, all right. So I also read on about controlled greetings when coming home or when guests arrive.
Uh-huh.
Practice calm greetings. I love to learn that one, but I'm not sure how. I know when you bring someone comes to your house and you don't want them jumping up, how to teach a calm, controlled greeting. Is that something that you find or acceptable, or is it more or less more like ultimate command, like sit?
That depends on the dog. That really depends on the dog.
Well, not to interrupt, but I've seen the small little dogs that just want to run and jump and jump and
Oh yeah,
jump and so excited. They're more excited than a big dog that's kind of aggressive.
yeah,
I say not aggressive, it's not the right word, but it's got a lot of bounce
intense.
in. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, the control greeting is basically, if we were to get really technical, which we don't need to, just like there is incompatible behavior, there's also a different differential reinforcement, which basically means you can do the behavior, just do a less intense version of that, you know? And what that means is you're not doing an incompatible behavior, you're doing a less intense version of that. So we reward the less intense version of that. So basically what it would mean is the dog would run up to your guest, get all excited, we go, we're not going to reward you for that. You're going to have to slow down a little bit, then that's what we're going to reward you for. Going back to, because we're speaking in general terms,
Right.
we're speaking in very general terms because it's sort of this could be different on the particular dog that this listener has, be different on a particular dog that a different listener has. But essentially, a less intense version of the greeting could work, again, on a dog that is a little bit less intense. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that makes
I
perfect
give you like a very excitable pity. They can differentiate, between a less intense version of the full version because they're just so excitable, so exuberant, so in the moment. But a different dog might be like, okay, I get it, I understand. I'll get rewarded for a less intense version of that. And it certainly can be achieved. My personal choice, my recommendation, and I think maybe across the board too, is incompatible behavior. Do this. Usually what I'll do for greeting is I'll teach them place. So I'll teach them that when I say place, you go on this little platform, this little elevated platform, like a bed, like a raised bed. So when there's the knocking, I want the dog to immediately run to the bed. You hear knocking, that means run to the bed. Knocking, run to the bed and wait. We have a guest coming. The guest comes in, the dogs are excited, but they're on the bed.
The charging pad.
Yeah, like the elevated platform.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Getting all charged up.
Yeah, exactly. So then I can have the guest come in, and I can let the guest know, depending on the type of dog I have, I might let my guest know, ignore him. Okay. Once he is calm, either you can go greet him on his bed, or I'll release him, and then he can greet you.
Yeah, so when I was going through some of this research, I started going through the guests coming in. I'm like, okay, well, there's some guests that need some reprogramming too, because you're giving your dog a series of commands or a command,
Yeah.
and they're countering you by like, oh no, it's
I don't
okay,
mind.
come here, and
Yeah.
it's like, no, you're defeating
Yes.
the whole purpose here.
Yeah. And this is probably one of the hardest things is to deal with people.
No, not at all.
For us, not for us, but usually for the pet owner, they'll feel bad telling people, don't pet my dog. Most people feel bad, and a lot of people realize that this is, your guest probably goes, oh, it's not a big deal. They genuinely
We're dog people.
are telling you.
This.
They're telling you, hey, I don't mind, it's fine, but they don't realize that if you're actually working on it, that you do mind. But the dog owner, a lot of times, doesn't want to cross that boundary. And I think that's the hardest for people to get past, is to get past I don't feel comfortable telling my guests not to greet my dog. You need to be able to tell your guest, I'm working on something very important. I live with this dog. This is very important to me, and this is what I want to do. And just let your guests know. Don't pet my dog. Right? It's just, it's hard for people to say no.
No, I get that. And it's uncomfortable.
It is, of course.
It's an uncomfortable conversation. You're try not to be rude to people.
You want to be nice.
Especially when they first come to your house, you don't want to be rude to them.
Yeah, exactly.
You're still in the,
it's difficult
you're
because
still in the entryway.
you don't want to be that person, especially if it's a guest that you like, somebody you're expecting, right? You're like, I'm expecting this person.
My thing I run into is I'll have someone older than me come over, and you naturally go to you show respect to your elders.
Of course.
And they want to get down, and they're like, no, don't.
Yeah.
No, don't do that.
Yeah. One of the things that works too is if you're expecting the guest, have like a bunch of treats, like in a bag or a container or something. By this point, your dog should have an idea of what place. You should teach your dog what place is. Mm-hmm. And then when you let your guests know you want to make them proactive and go, if you know this person is going to tell me, no, don't worry about it, and they're going to get my dog all excited, I'll just make them part of the training process. I'll be like, hey, can you do me a favor? Just take a handful of these treats and just put them on the bed.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean? Make them proactive, and then that way they feel special because they're helping you train your dog. That would be another approach.
So the last thing I came up with was redirect excitement, which kind of sounds more like somewhat of the teach an alternate command, whereas kind of like if your dog gets overly excited, redirect their energy into a more appropriate behavior such as fetching a toy or performing a trick they know well. But I guess as far as like, let's say you're in the instance of someone's at your door and they're running and they're going to want to jump up on them, I'm not sure how to redirect it to go fetch a toy or something.
That's essentially incompatible behavior.
Yeah.
You know?
So give them like more of the sit command would be more of...
It depends on the sit. Like if I have a very excitable dog, it's going to be very difficult for them to focus on sitting while they have this excitement of this person right in front of them. So for greeting and jumping on guests, my preferred one is place.
Place?
And I'll put the place bed anywhere. Sometimes I'll tell my clients, based on the setup of their home, I might tell them, put the place bed next to the door. That way they're close to the guest, but they're in place.
Okay.
Or depending on the setup of the house, I have mine away from the door. So I have mine like in a separate corner of where the door is. So that way my dog has view of the door. They can see the people coming in, but they're just waiting politely.
So they have the peripheral, but...
They can see, exactly. They can see, they can be very aware, but they're not right there. But depending on the setup, depending on the dog that you have, you might have to, it might be better, as I've told clients before, all right, based on the setup of your house, based on the dog you have, put the place bed right next to the door. So as you open the door, your dog immediately goes to place. Because they'll be like, oh, I'm so close to the door, I'm going to go in place. You can greet your guests. Your dog is on place. Your guests can greet your dog. Your dog doesn't have to get off the place bed. Of course, this requires a little bit of training too. But your guest now gets the pleasure of petting your dog as they come in, but your dog is on place. They're not jumping all over the place, zooming around the living room or anything like that. So to me, that's better than sitting, because sitting requires more concentration of the dog.
Okay.
On place, they can wiggle, they can turn. On a sit, they have to be rigid. And that can be very difficult for most dogs.
More military-like.
Exactly.
Okay, so when you work with, so let's just say someone says, I need to get with the trainer, and we're going to use you as the example here. Mm-hmm. Do you come to their homes and work with them if they're in the area, or do they need to come to you, or is it both?
No, I do both.
Okay.
Depending on the location, depending on the situation, I'll make recommendations based on what I think will work best for the owner. So there have been times where I've told people, based on what you're telling me, the best option is for us to do this at your place. Or there are times where I'll tell people, based on your situation, the best way to do it is at my place. Even if you want to do it at your place, my recommendation, based on all the facts, is that you come to me.
Makes sense.
Because, with me, there are trade-offs. If you do it at my place, at 5 acres, fenced in, and I have several dogs that are very well trained. So that means I have distractions that I can control. You know what I mean? If I go to your place, there are distractions that are out of my control. So that might not be the most effective way to do it if I go to your place, and there are distractions that we cannot control. At my place, I can control the distractions. However, there are instances in which it'd be best to go to your place because of the certain arrangements that you have in your house. The problems were happening directly, very specifically in your environment, and there are very, very specific issues that need to be addressed in your environment. In some instances, I'll go, the best option is to leave the dog with me so that I can do the training for your dog. That way, when you pick him up, the dog already has the skills that you're going to need to address these things that are happening in the house.
Okay. So I know we only addressed just like a common behavior that you got a dog that jumps up on you. I mean, like we said, there's excessive barking, chewing, walking, digging. There's so many little small things that can make it an uncomfortable situation in your home. That are things that you don't want. But as we've been adopting dogs out, I mean, Regina is always like, you might want to get dogs some training. If you do, there's this resources you can go over here, or you can call William and Lamita. We use you as a recommendation because what we see in a lot of the animals that we get to take in is we're not normally getting a little puppy that you're getting to mold your every little step. You're getting maybe 2 years of something else that you just don't know.
Exactly.
And we try to go and spend as much time as we can with the dogs, or each of our fosters do, and trying to understand what, does the dog know how to sit? Does the dog know how to fetch? What are the basic commands the dog knows how to do? What's the dog's behavior? So we can set it up for success. But boy, I tell you what, getting just that little bit of training can make a huge difference. I mean, I keep going over some of your videos where you got that in just 5 hours. I mean, like 5 hours. Boy, for what you could do in an afternoon, you could make a huge difference in a lifetime with that pet.
Yeah, absolutely. And to clarify for some of the people, the 5 hours doesn't necessarily have to be like all at once. Doesn't have to be all in one day. The training is it's a very individual process for each person and for each dog. So for some people, training might be as simple as some of the things that you're doing, just do a few things different. That's it. Because for your dog, that's all he might need. Just do a few things different, and you might be golden with that. Or it might be something as simple as these 3 things that you're doing, just don't do those things. And that might be it. And for some people, for some dogs, it might be like, we need to entirely overhaul everything you're doing and just come up with an entirely different SOP.
Makes sense. Perfect.
It depends on the dog. It might be something simple as, hey, you just change a couple of things and you'll be good. Or it might be like, we need to put in a lot of hours here.
Well, thank you very much for your time on this. William owns Dog Training is My Passion. .com is his website.
Yes.
Dog Training is My Passion.com. Canis Fortis Dog Training.
Yeah, Canis Fortis Dog Training. Yep.
So if you want to find more of his free resources he has out there, go to dogtrainingismypassion.com. He's got links on there to each of his social profiles from YouTube and everything else that you can get see more of his videos and some of the information he has out there. And additionally, if you want to reach out and contact him for more information, he has a contact form on there, and he's got questions on there. And those, I've noticed those questions are specific for a reason, because it just
Yeah.
speeds up everybody's time. Answer the questions, and then your first conversation can be a lot more
Yeah.
direct.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
again, dogtrainingsmypassion.com for William Garrido. He's just here in this. You're located in Lomita, and you serve all the way out to Brownwood, San Angelo.
Yeah, well, San Angelo is a little bit too far,
Okay.
but normally like Kempner, Copper Cove, San Saba, Goldthwaite, um, then
Occasionally
Austin.
bypasses. Oh, you go out to Austin?
Yeah, I got clients. Yeah, I got clients in Austin as well, Georgetown. I mean, I have clients that have. Right now, I have a client from Houston. I've had clients from Dallas. So it depends on what you need, how far you're willing to work with. But whatever works.
Sure.
Works.
Well, William's got got over 1,000 videos of content out there. If you're looking for some help to do training, get more information, figure out your game plan, visit his website, click on his YouTube link, and you'll get there. Other than that, we will talk to you guys next week.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.